Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Bits episode, a very quick impromptu Bits episode because Tesla has just launched a new Model Y trim level, a new variant. Now, this is usually not the most exciting news, but when you're talking about one of the best-selling cars in the world and sometimes the best-selling car in the world, any change, any update is certainly worth paying attention to. And this is a really interesting update, and I say that because we're going to look at Model Y Standard that's available on the global platform. And I guess one of the updates we should discuss is that it's no longer called Model Y Standard. It is now just called Model Y Rear-Wheel Drive or all-wheel drive. That's the new trim level. And then you go up to premium and then performance. So Coleton and Andreas, join me. Initial impressions, Coleton. Tesla launching all-wheel drive base Model Y. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into pricing on this and specs. I honestly kind of think this sits, though, in a pretty nice spot, especially when you start looking from rear-wheel drive to premium rear-wheel drive to all-wheel drive to now premium all-wheel drive. This kind of sits in a nice little sweet spot, I think, and really only $2,000 more for all-wheel drive versus premium. You're spending $4,000 more to get all-wheel drive. So I do think that's kind of nice.
And Andreas, what's your impression? I remember when you were shopping for your Model 3, you really wanted that all-wheel drive, non-performance trim. What's the impression here?
So my first impression was confusion. I'm like, yet another model. And, there've been so many Model 3 models and Model Y and Standard and Premium. And let's change the name. So my initial thought was, and my second thought was that seems like I think you call it premium washing or like a marketing fluff. Let's just remove the Standard because it sounds cheap. Let's remove it and let's just call it rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive. I get it from Tesla's viewpoint. It just sounds better. I never liked a Standard. It just doesn't sound like a Tesla. So I get it from that perspective, but it's still basically the same standard car, right? With the ugly frunk and everything.
Well, that's actually an interesting question because we'll get into some of the specs, and there is an actual cargo volume difference where the all-wheel drive has 0.8 cubic feet more cargo space than the rear-wheel drive. But we'll explore that during this show. But Andreas, you're totally right. This is essentially taking the Model Y Standard, which is now called rear-wheel drive, with the slightly smaller, roughly 70 kilowatt hours. It's like 69.5 kilowatt hour usable NMC chemistry, 225 kilowatt peak supercharging, and just putting an extra motor in the front of it. And they're charging only $2,000 more. Now, there's some benefits and there's some drawbacks. Let's start on the drawbacks. First of all, it's more expensive. Secondly, the front end of the car is going to feel a little bit heavier. It weighs about 160, 170 pounds for that front motor up there. So you're going to have that going. Another drawback is the range. There's going to be not really the weight, but the losses of spinning an additional gear set, and the motor is going to pull the range down. Although I don't think it's just that. I think they put the juicier rear motor in this thing. So if you guys remember from our out of spec testing video, we ran the Model Y Standard through our typical 0 to 60 quarter mile, 50 to 90 passing, all that stuff. And it was really slow off the line. And so you would floor it and like nothing would happen. And then it would ramp up. And essentially that Model Y had the 4DU drive unit in the back, but it had a couple silicon carbide drivers missing out of it, which meant that it had a really slow launch. But once the motor was spinning, those drivers could actually get to work and it would ramp the acceleration. So the 50 to 90 actually matched, if I remember correctly, my Rivian R1S LFP. Like it boogied when it was up and moving. So if we look at the 0 to 60 in specs on this, Coleton, I think the range hit comes from potentially putting the less efficient but full-blown rear motor in this thing. What do you think?
I would totally agree with that. And the big interesting thing here, it's the same 0 to 60 as the premium all-wheel drive, which exactly like you were saying, I kind of figured they were going to nerf this one a little bit. But that to me says we're now getting the same exact motors that we have in the premium version, which sounds awesome.
Right. And we already know that the premium all-wheel drive has the full fat multiple drivers on the rear inverter. Now, I don't remember offhand if that's 3DU or 4DU in its full fat form, but one of the downsides with going with this car is you are not going to, in either configuration, have the most efficient drivetrain available in the Model Y. Now, what's crazy is when you look at Model Y rear drive and Model 3 standard rear drive, they have the identical battery pack and the identical range on the EPA cycle, both 321 miles. And that is because the Model 3 never got the 4DU in the, sort of reduced form for max efficiency that the Model Y got. And so that Model 3 had the good acceleration off the line and all of that stuff, that the Model Y was just max efficiency mode. So there's some under the hood stuff going on there. And man, the Model Y was the most efficient SUV we have ever tested. And it wasn't even close. It's just magical. It beats almost every sedan on the market.
It's way more efficient than my Model 3 Performance by a lot. And that's pretty crazy when you consider how much bigger the frontal area, the overall car is. Pretty impressive.
Yeah, it's a really big car with a ton of room, and it matches the efficiency of the small sedan. So that is, just drivetrain magic going on there. Very cool. When we talk about the all-wheel drive, we mentioned the downsides there. Sorry, we've got a couple cats. I'm at my friend's house, and they've got some cats running around here. When you get to the all-wheel drive trim, there are upsides. So the upside would be all-wheel drive stability. If you're on loose surface or on snow or ice, we know Tesla's traction control and powertrain targets, they're all incredible and second to none. All of that hard work and engineering logic goes right into this car. And let's not forget, you get better acceleration. That Model Y standard, or now called rear drive, is dog slow off the line. You punch it and nothing happens. It's not dangerous, but it's borderline. It's surprisingly slow. Now, Coleton, 4.6 seconds 0 to 60 for 2K. That alone seems like it's worth the upgrade. What do you think?
I totally agree. I mean, I think all of us, I'm not trying to speak for everybody, but I think a lot of us is the better way to say it. We're pretty underwhelmed with the Model Y standard, now just the rear wheel drive Model Y when it came out, especially considering at the same time when you reviewed it, Kyle, you were looking at the Model 3 standard, which seems like it had a lot of great features still, and was basically the same car, just slightly cheaper than the premium Model 3 rear drive. I think this car makes a lot more sense, in my impression, than the rear wheel drive, especially considering the price bump difference. So, rear wheel drive starts at $39,990. This starts at $41,990. I think all of us were a little confused as to why they priced those cars, especially the rear drive, at the price point they did, being that it was a $5,000 upcharge to get the premium version. And these were really stripped down models, if you will. Now going to the all-wheel drive, I'm like, okay, now it's a $7,000 bump to get all-wheel drive in a premium version. That seems a little bit more where I kind of expected the rear drive to premium difference.
Yeah, and keep in mind, one of the problems we had right up until recently was that the standard Model Y never had autopilot as standard. And the premiums had base autopilot, but we all know Tesla's removing that across the model range, which is a whole topic and a whole issue in and of itself. So now if you're actually comparing like driver assistance spec for spec here, you have a $7,000 bump for premium all-wheel drive. And what do you realistically get for that? Well, you get a little bit more range, about 10 kilowatt hours, plus or minus. It's like, just about 10 kilowatt hours more. It doesn't actually relate to that much difference in the EPA cycle because you get the bigger wheels on this thing and there's a little bit more content in the vehicle. You're actually getting the same 0 to 60, which is hilarious. You get cooled seats, you're going from textile seats to sort of their premium, not leather, but nicer vinyl material, which I really think is a great material that Tesla uses. You get the big sound system when you go for all-wheel drive, and that was always that's a real something you should consider because the base sound system's fine, but it's not the big sound system. It's not even close to how good the Model Y can sound. Model Y does have a really good sound system, and you don't get the matrix headlights. The question becomes on the front trunk. I'm going to navigate us over really quick just to the Model Y page really quick because actually, hold on. Let me see if I can get us there. Coleton, we were just looking at this.
Yeah, go to view and compare features. Go back.
I think it's right here. I think it's down here. Yeah.
There you go.
This is the rear wheel drive, 321 miles, 6.8 seconds, 0 to 60. Tesla's always matched their numbers in our testing. Look at this cargo, 74 cubic feet, all wheel drive, 74.8. So does it not have the stupid, not waterproof front trunk? That's the only thing I can think that could be different.
Which is weird that you would get more in an all wheel drive versus a rear drive because you don't have a front motor up front.
How do we get to see the premium specs? I only see these two.
Go to
compare models, maybe.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so
actually,
let's.
There's a different side.
Oh wait, no, they'll show this here. So we can go Model Y all-wheel drive and then Model Y premium all-wheel drive. Oh, so no, it is different because this still has 76 cubic feet, and I believe from what Tesla told me, the main difference before was the front trunk is bigger in the premium with the waterproof. So where is that 0.8 of cubic feet coming from in between these two?
That's really strange. I wonder if they had to get a new mat type situation in there because of the front motor being in there. They had to rearrange some stuff, maybe.
That must be it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, I just am going through these vehicles side by side. So I have on the left now the Model Y rear drive, in the center all-wheel drive, and premium all-wheel drive on the right. And I mean, acceleration is the same between these two. I mean, those are the specs different. Man, you're spending a lot of money for a glass roof and some nicer seats and a little bit more range in the premium now.
I just noticed something, Kyle. If you scroll down a little bit, why does it say all-wheel drive and the new Model Y, and here all-wheel dual motor? Like both have two motors, right?
They actually added a transfer case and a drive shaft.
Maybe
it's got a hump in the center.
Maybe you don't get the dual motor badge on the new one.
Oh, really? That could be, but it's still dual motor.
Yeah,
but it just looks. Yeah, if people want the badge, pay $7 more or buy it aftermarket.
Anyway, they're really picking at straws here to try and get the differences. I mean, at the end of the day, they're all Model Ys. They're all going to suit your needs just fine. But before, when I was kind of hardcore against the Model Y standard, and I like the Model 3 standard, now that nothing comes with basic autopilot, you still got to subscribe $100 a month for FSD. It's actually pretty hard to justify the Model Y premium right now. And I really think this is the cost structure that we all expected when the car first launched. A pretty big gap where like a large majority of people are going to go for the standard offerings. You can charge quite a bit more for the nicer vehicle. And then you have the performance, which is way on top for a certain subset of customers who want to go fast. But to me, this feels right, actually. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I feel like this is a good spread. Andreas, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. It's if you don't want to spend a lot of money and you still want a nice Tesla, a Model Y, a great vehicle, these are actually good price points now, like around 40 grand. Maybe you get some tax credits state-wise, bring it down to 35 or something. A really good price, actually.
The big thing I really wish they would add, because I just lived with the Model Y standard for the last 2 months, ambient lighting or some sort of down lighting, because it's so dark on the inside. It actually is kind of like dark and dreary, is kind of annoying. And that was kind of like my main issue with it. The headlights weren't great. I do like the matrix function. And I think, if at least they should match the Model 3 offerings. Like Model 3 has glass roof, weatherproof front matrix headlights, stuff like that. I actually thought the range, because the car was so efficient, was more than adequate. They could have done a smaller battery. So even though you get a range hit with the all-wheel drive, that doesn't really bother me. And now you get really good acceleration with that, under 5 seconds, 0 to 60 for 42 grand. That's great. That's really great. So, I think Tesla's learning, and I think they're dialing it in. And I think if you parked Y rear drive versus all-wheel drive next to each other, if you're just going to sit on the highway and you're never going to see snow or anything, yeah, maybe go rear drive just because that is magically efficient. But at the end of the day, I think most people are just going to spend the extra $2K and get the all-wheel drive. So Coleton, final thoughts.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the all-wheel drive makes a lot more sense than the rear drive, in my impression, even still at this price marketing. It was interesting to see the comments on X, I still call it Twitter, and a lot of people are like, just too many trims of the Model Y. And I'm thinking, like, have you guys ever seen Porsche 911? We have 21 different trims on sale of the 911 right now. I think 5 seems very reasonable. You have your budget-friendly option. You've got your premium option that's, more aimed at road tripping comfort, and then your performance option. I actually think this is quite a nice spread in my impression, and I think 5 seems to be a really good number.
That brings up a great point. I wanted to show everyone this really quick because in Europe, Tesla did something even different with the standard model. So I'm going to switch us over to the Norwegian site because we have a YouTube channel called Out of Spec Roaming. And our colleague William lives in Norway and reports on what's happening there. They're the EV capital of the world, so it's great to see that. I'm going to translate this into English for everyone because no one speaks Norwegian, and every Norwegian speaks English. So we'll be fine there. I know I'm overgeneralizing. But look at this. They have rear-wheel drive and long-range rear-wheel drive if you want to add to the confusion. So what we did in the US actually seemed like the right approach for what they should have done in Norway. But instead, in Norway, they put the big NMC pack in there, the LG pack they get, and they made it rear drive. Now, what's funny is their rear-wheel drive version, Coleton, is actually a CATL LFP battery pack.
What?
Yes, they don't get the standard pack, the NMC version that we do here. They use LFP in the rear. So like this car in Norway is LFP. This is NMC large pack. And then you go up to premium. In the US, we have, I'll come back to our site here. In the US, you have a NMC rear drive, which is the 10 kilowatt hours removed. They removed basically a string of cells that were in parallel configuration and not in series. So you still have quite high pack voltage, but just fewer cells. So you still can charge well on amperage limited chargers. And then they kept that same exact battery, but added a motor to it. And I bet they updated the rear motor as well. This is the same drivetrain that's in the all-wheel drive. So you go backwards in efficiency, but then you get the acceleration. And then the premium is, premium all-wheel drive and premium rear-wheel drive use that same motor layout, but with the bigger NMC pack. So if no one's confused now, that seems wild. So Andreas, I know you were saying it feels too confusing, but can you imagine cross-market what Tesla's trying to do to maximize for each area? I don't think we've really seen another automaker play around with this many different battery packs and chemistries for one model before.
Yeah, I agree. It's quite fascinating how they bring out models for the different markets. Like, what's the thought process behind it, right? Like, why does the US need a new standard, no longer standard all-wheel drive car, and in Norway we do it differently? Fascinating.
And I think in Norway they still get base autopilot included. At least at the time, the standards had base lane centering, base autopilot. But here in the US, we never got it in the standard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting stuff. One more thought. Actually, I had the same thought as most Twitter folks in the beginning. I was like, oh my God, there's so many models now. But now I actually changed my mind after Coleton, your point. It's actually a quite nice, how do you say? Breakout
like a spread
of the cars. Yeah, the spread. Yeah. Like 2 standard, 2 premium, and performance.
In the business, we call it the offer structure.
Offer structure. Exactly.
So one more point here. I've heard rumblings about 4680 coming back in their 3rd generation 4680. Where's that going to fit in?
Oh, are we supposed to be excited about that? Or
I'm not, but where does that come in?
Well, then you can choose. Do you want a gigacast 4680 with a structural body and cell to pack? Gosh, it's going to get complicated.
That's what I'm saying.
No lack of content. We will never be out of a job if they keep doing this. So I think, take everything we're saying here with a grain of salt. There's a lot of speculation from our side, but I would say based off of our experience and knowing how Tesla works, I feel pretty confident putting this video out. But of course, we'll correct, we'll update it. We will get the car in, we will test it. But I'm with the guys on this one. I think this seems like a really good value. And I'm surprised to say this on a base Model Y, but I think this might be the one to have out of the entire model lineup for most people.
Totally agree.
Yep.
Okay, well, that brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for watching another Out of Spec Bits episode. If you're in the market for just your NPC car, you just need something to get from A to B, it's now the Model Y all-wheel drive as the default choice. Thanks so much for watching. See you in another one again soon. Bye-bye.